Among the midst of midnight, in the lonely dark hours, when you question every shadow in every corner, we want to welcome you to a Fradio Radio podcast. Welcome, everybody. In tonight's episode, we learn about the difference between good and evil. What really separates the good from the bad? Do we become bad people when we do bad things for good reasons? Starring in tonight's episode is Camila Montero as Jane, Lisa Lettinen as the daughter, Dexter Manning as the doctor, and Roderick Dryden Morrison was Jasper, written also by Roderick Dryden Morrison. Stay tuned, everybody, for Lipgloss. I stood watching the memorial lantern I lit float away when I heard a familiar voice say,
"Hey, I know you."
It was her. She and her band of evildoers. I turned to face her in feigned forgetfulness.
"It's me. You helped me at night about 2 months ago. I was trapped under the rain because somebody left me alone that night,"
she said, glancing at Eric, indicating that he was the somebody. My resentment for him and her grew exponentially at that moment. "Oh, that was you?" I said, widening my eyes. "Wow, small world," I added. She flashed her pearly whites as she laughed. She looked extremely lovely this evening, dressed in a moderate bikini dotted with bananas and coconuts, a black kimono or whatever they call those gowns, bathed in a golden light of the setting sun.
"I never told you my name. That was very rude of me. It's Jane,"
she said, stretching out her hand. "Jasper," I replied as I shook her hand. Very soft.
"I'm such a rude little girl." "These are my friends. Eric, Tracy, Nicole, and Jamal."
She continued as her friends waved in return.
"Not to butt in, but what are you doing at the beach? You don't look much like a beachgoer,"
she said, flashing those teeth again. If she smiles at me one more time, I'm going to smash her jaw with a hammer. I'm not. Today is the anniversary of my wife's death, and the beach was one of her favorite places to go, I finally said, pointing at the lantern that was making its way into the open sky above the ocean.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry."
"What are you doing here?" I asked Jane.
"Oh, nothing. Just friendly hangout,"
she said, maintaining serious eye contact and placing an arm on my arm. "Are you flirting with me, Jane? And at my wife's own memorial? That is just despicable." "Well, I have to be on my way home. Nice meeting you guys," I lied, and began walking towards my car. She ran after me and placed a hand on my shoulder.
"Do you have to go now? What do you need to go do at home? Stay with us for a little bit, please. We were about to go to the bar and order a few tequilas,"
she said, giving me a puppy dog face. "Because my wife and child are dead, you assume that I don't have anything important to do at home? You were right, and I resented you more for being right. The look, the gestures, and the body language. What is your motive here? I didn't want to stay or be anywhere near your friends, but staying would help me understand you better. And what better to know someone's true nature than when they are lightheaded and their walls of caution are down." "Okay, just a single shot. Or 5, I said, laughing. She laughed along with me and locked our arms together as she led me to where the bar was situated.
"Ah, I see Jane was able to convince you to stay,"
Eric said, with a hint of jealousy in his voice. This should be interesting. As the alcohol flowed, so did their pointless discussions. Eric was the only person whose discussion didn't orbit around the areas of wellness, world peace, cancer, and the LGBTQ fundraising. Because I already knew each of their darker realities, listening to them talk about such humanitarian topics made me feel disgusted in myself. I had reached my breaking point and was about to get up to leave when Jamal turned to Jane and asked,
What is the worst thing you've ever done?
She first looked at him wide-eyed and mouth open in shock before she burst out laughing.
Who was my first kiss?
Jason!
She took another shot before answering.
No, it was his brother, Bethel. I lied. I'm sorry. He just asked me first, and Chipsa was a little shy.
You are a wild one, honey.
Nicole said with her nasally voice. Tracy turned and asked me,
What is the worst thing you've ever done?
Me? I asked, pointing at myself.
Yes, cutie.
Tracy said, resting her jaw on her palms and staring intently at me. Well, it would be extensively stalking this girl I just met and even digging and monitoring her and her friend's conversation for some unseen motive and eventually finding out her true nature. I replied with a bland expression on my face. They all looked at me for a few moments before everyone burst into uncontrollable laughter.
That's a good one.
Jane said.
For real this time.
Tracy added. It would be cheating at Monopoly. I'm a saint, I finally said. Since they didn't accept my truth, they might as well enjoy a lie. That was pretty much how the world actually worked. We choose not to believe the glaring truths before our eyes and choose to accept the half-truths and lies our brains come up with. I see it as just the coping mechanism of man. We are afraid of accepting the truth, which is our reality, and therefore opt for the more acceptable lie, a fantasy. And so they went around the table, all telling lies and eating each other's own up. I knew the worst things they had done. I knew the darkness that lurks within their hearts, but I don't care about them. I only care about her. We all have evil in our hearts, which was no secret. Humans are the youngest of species to have evolved on this planet, but we are the cruelest of species, capable of the greatest evil. I would have written off the nature of man as evil, if not that there was good to be found in humanity too. There was great good, and there was also great evil. But we cannot be of both natures. One must stand out amongst the two, and that was what I was concerned with in her. I must find out. After their bouts of lying and drinking, they all got up, giddy and excited, and made for their cars. I could let them drive home in their drunken state, and if life was fair, the world would be rid of a few bad people. But the world isn't fair, and doing that would make me a bad person, even if it was for the right reasons. Right? You guys are too far gone to drive home tonight. I'll help you order Ubers, I said.
What do you mean?
Nicole asked, trying to open her car door with a pen she had fished out of her purse. That's what I mean, I said, pointing at Jamal, how he couldn't find the handle for his own car.
I see what you mean.
Jane said, and they all started laughing again.
Let's just get him to order us an Uber.
She added. Then she came closer to me and whispered in my ear before laughing again.
Will you be my Uber?
My brain raced at an alarming rate, trying to find a good excuse to avoid driving her home. Finding none, I finally agreed. All right, I said while heaving a sigh. I couldn't help but notice the look on Eric's face when the rest of them entered their Ubers, but Jane stayed by my side.
This seems familiar.
Jane said as she got into the passenger seat of my car.
Take me away, stranger.
She added dramatically before laughing and passing out. I drove her home silently and shook her awake when I got to her driveway.
What? Oh, we're here. Could you please walk me inside?
She asked. No problem, I replied and came around to the passenger side door and lifted one of her hands over my shoulder and helped her into her house. She directed me into her room, and I placed her on the bed and helped her remove her shoes. As I was about to leave, she pulled me close and pressed her lips on mine. I removed mine instantly. What are you doing? I asked her.
What am I doing? What are you doing? You've been staring at me all night.
She said, the alcohol rapidly leaving her brain. I don't know what idea I must have put into your head, but I am sorry, I replied. You don't even know me. I could be a murderer, I added. She just sat on her bed looking at me, the effects of the alcohol not totally gone. When she didn't say anything else, I gently placed her head back onto her pillow and drew the covers up over her slender neck. She mumbled something that sounded like a thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night, I told her as I left her room and house. Inside my car, I wiped my lips with a tissue before the smell of the lip gloss on them brought tears to my eyes. After our little hangout at the beach, Eric and Jane started having issues. From their chats, I could tell that he was jealous. He had condemned her for following a stranger home, and she had reminded him that she was a full-grown adult and was old enough to make decisions for herself. They went back and forth for nearly 3 hours, and it got heated. Like all women in heated arguments, she became discourteous and hurled different words at him. She went on her rage and started recounting his past deeds. From the look of things, it seemed like it was his fault that they had broken up. He probably cheated. Before she was done, she had counted almost 25 different relationships. He quickly tried to change the topic to something else and asked how she was coping. She wasn't done, though. From there, she went to how he had taken advantage of her situation and used it as a means to worm his way back into her life. Then she had recounted the day he had left her alone in a bar on a stormy night. That was the day we had met. She had come to confess to him about what she had done. He was the only person she trusted, which was weird if you asked me, seeing that he had cheated on her. Well, she had told him and had let him know that she had wanted to go turn herself in. He had told her not to, telling her it wasn't the best course of action, and letting her know that if she had turned herself in and the person turned out all right, her life would have been ruined, and it would have been for nothing. She had remained adamant, and Eric got angry and left, saying,
Fine! Turn yourself in then! You only think about yourself.
And that is how I found her. Thank you, Eric. But Jane, you didn't give him all the information, now did you? There's something that you left out. Something that only I know. And the reason why you left out that piece of information is because it sums up exactly who you are. And you are ashamed at the realization. Having established your true nature at the beach, I feel reluctant to act. There is good in you, Jane, even though the same cannot be said about your vile friends. The argument went on, and then she did what finally made me act. She reminded me why I had begun following her in the first place. I could chalk it up and say it wasn't the real you, or say that you said it out of anger. But no, it was the real you talking. It was the real you expressing your innermost thoughts and traits. Jane, I have finally decided you are evil.
Why do you keep asking how I'm coping? What business of yours is it really, Eric?
It's my business because I care about you, Jane.
Well, don't. I don't need you looking out for me like I'm some troubled kid. I'll be fine with or without you. And I think I prefer the latter, so you can just back off.
You act all tough now, but you forget that I was the one there for you when you were moping like a child. So don't go around acting like you are some sort of beacon of hope and strength when, frankly, you are nothing of the sort.
So, you feel you're the strong one because you slept with me, drove me around, and bought me dishes? Don't make me laugh.
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You are a selfish, manipulative, and self-centered bitch. Only someone like you can knock someone down with their car and run away and still have the audacity to play the victim's card. You are a monster. That is what you are. And just know that your secret is safe with me, but we are done.
Fuck you, Eric. Fuck you. I know what I am, and I know what I am capable of. I don't need you or any fucking body to tell me who or what I am. And nothing, absolutely nothing, not even a stupid little bitch who was too stupid to get out of the way can change that.
I really have to thank you, Eric. If it wasn't for your ungentlemanly ways, I would never have found Jane. And now, if it wasn't for that same trait, I would never have been able to conclude things with Jane. Thank you. What is the true nature of man? Why are we so bound by the things we do? Why does good and bad have to exist? Why can't man exist and just simply exist? Am I a bad person? What does it really mean to be a bad person anyway? Is it bad deeds that make a man truly bad? Or is it the reasons behind what he did that makes him bad? My alarm woke me up with the same blaring sound that I'd come to hate. 4:30 a.m. Instead of waking up annoyed today, the only emotion coming from me this morning was rage. I got dressed and put the tool I would be using for today's early morning activities inside a small knapsack. I did some stretches and did some warm-up exercises. I would not want to lag behind in today's jogging session. I waited outside her house, and at exactly 5:15 a.m., she burst out of her compound, and I gave her a minute head start before I followed her closely. But silently, as if she did not know that someone else was on the road with her. We had gotten to the time of year when nights last longer than mornings, and I was glad that we would be offered almost an extra hour of cover that is darkness. I had followed her enough times to know her entire jogging route. I had it all mapped out in my head that I was sure I could jog through the entire course with my eyes closed. There was a particular area she passed that offered enough seclusion for us to talk. As she jogged ahead of me, I had a last-minute dialogue in my head, trying to make sure that I had made the right decision. As she neared the turning that led to my pre-selected spot, I quickened my pace and began to near her. Anger should be considered a doping drug. As she entered the secluded spot, I slipped my hand into my knapsack and brought out the mallet. Thanks to the headphones she wore, she didn't notice my footsteps till I was basically on top of her. When she turned to have a look at who was approaching, all she saw was my fist as it made contact with the side of her head, and I knocked her out. When she finally came to, her dazed eyes tried to focus on the surroundings. When she saw me standing over her, she tried to move and noticed that she was tied up. She opened her mouth to scream and saw that her voice was muffled. "Be quiet," I said to her in a gruff voice. "Do you know who I am?" I asked her, taking off my hoodie. Her eyes widened and she nodded. "Good. I am going to take off your gag. And when I do, I don't want you to scream. Unless you want to get hit in the face with a hammer." She nodded. "Okay," I said before removing her gag.
Please, please, please let me go. Why are you doing this?
I held the hammer to my lips in reply, and she quieted down. I had a speech prepared, but I think I'm just going to go on the top of my head, I said. The reason why I am doing this is because you are a bad person, Jane. Do you know what you did? I asked her. She shook her head. Okay, what is the worst thing you've ever done, Jane? And know this, I know all what you've done. Lie to me, and I'll break your knees, I told her with a growl.
I did a hit and run.
Good. I appreciate the honesty. And how did you feel about it? I pressed further.
Terrible. I felt awful.
She said, beginning to cry. Tell me the truth. How did you feel? I asked again.
Please, I'm telling the truth.
She blubbered out. That is not what I hear. I hear you feel that it wasn't your fault, I said as I forced the gag back into her mouth. I hear that you blamed the stupid little bitch, I said, hammering down 5 fingers as I asked. Her eyes closed and her head arched, and she tried to clench her tied down hands. After allowing her to writhe in pain for a little bit, I pulled the gag out of her mouth. As she began to plead again, then I stuffed it back in. I have been following and monitoring you since the day we met, and I have been trying to determine whether you were a good person or a bad one. And I have decided, Jane, I have decided that you are a bad person. Normally, I wouldn't even be concerned. It is not even my business. Why, you may even ask. Well, the answer is, it was my fucking daughter you hit, I said, and brought the hammer down on her knee. Her scream was muffled against the gag, and her leg fell away uselessly. Did you hear me? You killed my daughter, my precious little girl. She was all I had left, and you took her away from me. I screamed at her. You want to know how I found out? I'll tell you. I never knew you were the one till I picked you up that rainy day. Talk about right place at the right time. When you left your bag in my car, I had the urge to go through it. Sorry, that was wrong of me. But what do I find? Amy's lip gloss. The only thing that had not been found at the crime scene. Now, that wasn't enough to put you at the crime scene, but it was the lead. My daughter used the same product, so I knew how rare it was to find. So I decided that doing a little digging would not be bad. I snuck into your house, and I found your car. Yes, I found your car, covered in evidence. Now, I could have killed you then and there. I mean, that's strong enough evidence. But you see, I'm not a killer. I had to see if it was an accident. I needed to know if you were a bad person or not. So I watched you, studied you, and I realized that you weren't a good person. I was still reluctant till I read your chat with Eric last night, you self-centered bitch. That was when I realized without a doubt the kind of monster you are. Who knocks down a 16-year-old girl and doesn't wait to help? She wasn't even dead on impact. She was painfully alive for the next 2 hours, unseen, because you knocked her under a bush. And then the lip gloss, it was found on the road. It wasn't even my daughter's, and it could have flown out of your bag. You were applying it while you drove, instead of focusing on the road. The doctors say that your car crushed my baby girl's chest. She died in pain. I'm going to let you feel the same pain. I spat out in rage. I used the hammer to hit her all over the chest till I heard the breaking of bones and saw her gasp painfully. Now, we will see how long you last before someone finds you, I said to her face before untying her and leaving her alone on the road. It was an abandoned road. The only time people would find her is when there are reports of a foul odor. I finally did it. You finally get the justice you deserve. I did a bad thing for a good reason. Does that make me bad? Oh well, what wouldn't we do for the people we love?
This story and all related media is copywritten by RDM Productions, Inc. For use, please contact rdmpfilms@gmail.com. And I hope everybody checks out our website at afradioradio.com. And also, guys, if you liked an episode, don't forget to rate us. We're brand new. We're just getting out there. We're trying to get our name out there. Every little bit counts. Every little bit helps. We appreciate every little thing you guys do. And also, thank you so much for listening to our episode.